The large meeting room buzzed with voices from many planets. Beings of all shapes, sizes, and colors moved around in fancy clothes. Some had 6 arms, others had skin that changed colors. A few floated instead of walked. This was the Galactic Council, home to over 300 different alien species. Frank Miller stood near the wall watching it all. He pulled at his tight collar and tried to look calm. This was his first big meeting as Earth's ambassador. After humans discovered faster-than-light travel just 5 years ago, the galaxy had invited them to join. Sort of. "They're staring at us again," said Dr. Lisa Wright, who stood next to Frank. She was Earth's top scientist and Frank's advisor. "Let them stare," Frank said, though his stomach felt tight. "We have as much right to be here as anyone." Lisa smiled but looked worried. Most of these species spent thousands of years developing before joining the council. "We showed up with our rockets and computers still warm from the factory." Frank nodded. The aliens thought humans were babies playing with toys they didn't understand. Maybe they were right. But here they stood anyway. "Daddy, that one has eyes." "On stalks," said a small voice. Frank looked down at his daughter Abby, who was 10 years old with bright red hair in 2 braids. She pointed at a tall green alien. "Abby, remember what we talked about?" "No pointing," Frank said gently. Bringing Abby to the Galactic Hub Station had been a hard choice. His wife had died 2 years ago, and he had no one to watch Abby during this 3-month diplomatic mission. The other council members had not been happy when they learned a human child would be at the station. No other species brought their young to such important meetings. "Sorry," Abby said, putting her hand down. "But did you see?" "I saw," Frank said with a small smile. "That's Ambassador Krell from the Vexar system. Their eyes can see in all directions, at once." Lisa bent down to Abby's level. "What do you think of space so far?" "It's awesome," Abby said. "The stars look so different out here, and I made friends with the computer in our room. It tells me stories about all the planets." Frank was about to speak when a hush fell over the room. Even the loudest aliens went quiet. All their eyes turned toward the main door. "They're here," Lisa whispered. The doors slid open. 8 tall figures walked in wearing black armor with purple gems. Their skin was dark purple, and each had 6 red eyes set in faces that looked almost like human skulls. Sharp teeth showed when they opened their mouths. These were the Zordaxians, the most feared species in the galaxy. Behind them came a figure, even taller than the rest. His armor was lined with gold and a spiky crown sat on his head. This was King Vrask, ruler of the Zordaxian Empire and the most powerful being in the known galaxy. "Why is everyone so quiet?" Abby whispered. "That's King Vrask," Frank explained softly. "His empire controls half the galaxy. The Zordaxians have the biggest fleet and the strongest weapons. Everyone's afraid of them." "Is he a bad guy?" Abby asked. Frank paused. "Politics isn't always about good guys and bad guys, honey, but yes, many would say he's not very nice." "The Zordaxians used to be peaceful," Lisa added in a whisper. "Something changed them about 500 years ago. Now they take what they want and hurt anyone who gets in their way." Frank nodded. "Tomorrow I have to vote on whether they can mine resources from 3 planets. If I vote no, Earth might make a powerful enemy." "But what about the people who live on those planets?" Abby asked. "That's the problem," Frank said. "There are people there, but not many council members will vote against King Vrask." The king moved around the room. When aliens noticed him coming, they bowed their heads or moved out of his way. Some made special signs with their hands or tentacles. The king barely looked at them. "All council members will attend the reception tonight," said a voice from speakers around the room. "The king wishes to discuss tomorrow's vote." Frank sighed. That means he wants to make sure everyone votes his way. A tall, blue alien with 4 arms approached them. "Ambassador Miller," he said with a small bow. "I am Delegate Zorth of the Pleiades Alliance. May I speak freely?" "Of course," Frank said. "Many of us watch Earth with great interest," Zorth said. "Your species is unpredictable. Some find this concerning." "We're just trying to find our place," Frank replied. "Indeed." Zorith's eyes moved to Abby. I see you have brought new life to these halls. Most unusual. This is my daughter Abby, Frank said. Zorith made a gesture with his lower right hand. New perspectives are rare in these ancient chambers. Perhaps this is why humans progress so quickly. You see with fresh eyes. After Zorith left, Lisa said, "That was almost a compliment." "I think it was," Frank agreed. "Not everyone sees humans as just troublemakers." "Ambassador Miller," called a small floating robot. "The human section is ready for your inspection." "Thank you," Frank said. He turned to Lisa and Abby. "Let's go see our new offices." They followed the robot down wide hallways. Aliens of all kinds moved past them. Some stared at Abby with their many eyes. Human children were a new sight on the station. The human section was a group of rooms near the edge of the diplomatic ring. The main office had a large window showing the stars outside. Earth was too far away to see, but Frank still looked for it. "It's not what I expected," Lisa said, looking around. "What do you mean?" Frank asked. "We're in the small section, far from the council chambers. The important species get bigger spaces near the center." Frank nodded. "We have to earn our place. The galaxy's been doing this for thousands of years without us." A loud alarm made them jump. The robot floated back into the room. "The reception begins in 1 hour," it announced. "All delegates must attend." "Already?" Frank looked at his watch. "I thought we had more time." "The king changed the schedule," the robot said. Frank looked at Abby. "I need to get you settled in our quarters." "Can I come?" Abby asked. "I want to see all the aliens in their fancy clothes." Frank was about to say no when Lisa spoke up. "It might be good for her to see how diplomacy works, and it sends a message that humans value their children." Frank thought for a moment. "Okay, but stay close to me at all times. Some of these species might not understand human children." As they prepared for the reception, none of them knew that tonight would change the galaxy forever, all because of one brave human child who didn't know when to be afraid. The reception hall glowed with soft blue light. The ceiling looked like a night sky with stars that moved slowly. Frank, Lisa, and Abby walked in together. Abby wore a simple blue dress. Her red hair was brushed neatly, and she held her father's hand tight. "Remember what we talked about," Frank said quietly. "Just watch and listen. Don't wander off." "I know, Dad," Abby said. Her eyes were wide as she looked at all the aliens in the room. Some wore clothes made of light. Others had skin that changed colors to match their mood. A group of small, fuzzy beings floated near the ceiling in bubbles. "Ambassador Miller," called a voice. A tall, green alien with 4 arms walked over. "I am Delegate Plynn of the Mercurial Collective. We are pleased to see Earth represented tonight." Frank shook one of Plynn's hands. "Thank you for the welcome." Plynn looked down at Abby. "And this small one must be the human offspring I have heard about. How unusual to bring new life to these proceedings." "This is my daughter Abby," Frank said. "She's 10 years old." 10 orbits? So young. Plynn made a gesture with his upper arms. "Our young require 50 orbits of education before joining civic matters." Lisa smiled. "Human children learn quickly." Plynn nodded. "Perhaps this is why your species achieved star travel so rapidly. You see with fresh eyes." He looked around the room nervously. "The king has arrived. I must go. Good fortune in tomorrow's vote, Ambassador." After Plynn left, Frank guided them to a quiet corner. Servers moved around with trays of food and drinks. Some of the food glowed or changed colors. "Can I try that?" Abby pointed at a tray with small round balls that floated above the plate. Lisa checked her tablet. "The computer says it's safe for humans. Just one, okay?" The server came over. Abby took one of the floating balls. It tasted like honey and lemons. "It's good," she said. Frank was watching the crowd. "The king is making his rounds. He's talking to each delegation about tomorrow's vote." Lisa followed his gaze. King Vrask towered over everyone. The aliens around him bowed or made special gestures as he passed. "What will you say when he comes to us?" I'll listen to his case, Frank said. But I won't commit to anything. Earth needs to be careful here. Abby watched the king move around the room. She didn't like the way other aliens seemed afraid of him. Her teacher at school had talked about bullies and how they made others feel small. This king seemed like a big bully to her. As the evening went on, more delegates came to speak with Frank. Some were friendly. Others seemed to be checking what Earth would do about tomorrow's vote. Abby stayed quiet and listened. She didn't understand all the big words they used, but she could tell many of the aliens were worried. The mining operation would destroy the habitats on those planets, said a small blue alien with big eyes. My species has cousins there, but none of us dare oppose the king. Earth is concerned about the impact, Frank said carefully. We're still learning about galactic politics. Then learn this, said the blue alien. Those who oppose King Vrask find themselves without protection when the Zordaxian fleet visits their worlds. After the blue alien left, Lisa whispered to Frank, "That was a warning. He's telling us to vote yes or face trouble." Frank nodded. "I got that message." Abby tugged on her father's sleeve. "Dad, that's not right. You told me that good people stand up for others who can't protect themselves." Frank bent down to her level. "That's true, Abby. But here things are more complicated. Earth is new to the galaxy. We need to be careful." Before Abby could answer, the crowd around them went quiet. King Vrask was walking toward the human delegation. His 6 red eyes glowed in his skull-like face. His guards stayed a few steps behind him. "Ambassador Miller," the king said in a deep voice, "Earth's representative. At last we meet." Frank gave a small bow. "King Vrask, it is an honor." The king looked at Lisa, then at Abby. "You bring a child to council matters? How primitive." "This is my daughter," Frank said. "On Earth, we believe children can learn from watching important events." King Vrask made a sound like rocks grinding together. It might have been a laugh. What can a child understand of galactic politics? Tomorrow's vote will decide the fate of 3 worlds. The Zordaxian Empire requires those resources. Earth is still considering its position, Frank said carefully. We understand the need for resources, but also care about the beings who live on those planets. The king's eyes narrowed. Care? What use is care in the face of necessity? The Zordaxian fleet keeps peace in this sector. Without resources, that peace ends. Lisa stepped forward. Perhaps there's a way to extract resources without harming the current inhabitants? A waste of time and effort, the king said. Those species are few in number and contribute nothing to the council. Progress requires sacrifice. Abby listened to these words. She remembered her teacher, Miss Hansen, talking about how bullies often hurt others to get what they wanted. Miss Hansen said that giving bullies what they wanted only made them worse. King Vrask leaned closer to Frank. Earth is new here. You would be wise to make friends, not enemies. Those who oppose the Zordaxian Empire find space travel dangerous. Abby felt her face get hot. The king was threatening her dad. Without thinking, she stepped forward. That's not nice. The room went very quiet. Everyone stared at the small human girl standing in front of the most feared being in the galaxy. Frank tried to pull Abby back. Abby, please. But Abby moved forward. She looked up at the tall purple king. My teacher says we don't let bullies get what they want just because they're bigger. King Vrask's 6 eyes all focused on the small human. Your offspring dares speak to me this way, he said to Frank. Perhaps humans need to learn respect. You're just a big bully, Abby said, her hands on her hips now. You're making everyone afraid so you can take things that aren't yours. What happened next shocked everyone in the room. Abby stepped forward and slapped King Vrask's leg, the highest part of him she could reach. Frank gasped. Lisa covered her mouth. The king's guards reached for their weapons. The other aliens in the room moved back quickly, some making sounds of fear. In Zordaxian culture, touching the king without permission was punishable by death. No one had dared to strike the king in living memory. King Vrask stared down at the small human child. The entire reception hall held its breath. Everyone expected the king's famous anger to explode. Time seemed to freeze in the reception hall. No one moved. No one spoke. No one even breathed. All eyes were on King Vrask and the small human child who had just slapped him. Frank felt his heart stop. He reached for Abby, wanting to pull her away to protect her, but his body wouldn't move. Beside him, Lisa had gone pale. The king's guards had their hands on their weapons, ready to act. They looked at their king, waiting for his command. King Vrask stood perfectly still, all 6 of his red eyes fixed on Abby. His face, which looked like a purple skull, showed no emotion that humans could read. Then, slowly, his body began to shake. A sound filled the room. It started low, then grew louder. It was rough and strange, like stones rolling down a hill. The king was making a noise no one had heard before. He was laughing. King Vrask, feared ruler of half the galaxy, was laughing. His guards looked at each other in confusion. The other aliens in the room seemed just as shocked. "This small human has more courage than the entire council," King Vrask said at last. His voice was still deep, but somehow different, less cold. "What is your name, young one?" Abby, who seemed less scared than she should be, answered clearly. "Abby Miller." "Abby Miller," the king repeated. "No being has dared to touch me in 200 years. Yet you, a child of a species new to the stars, did so without hesitation." Frank finally found his voice. "Your Majesty, please forgive my daughter. She doesn't understand." "There is nothing to forgive," the king said, raising one hand. "In fact, I wish to speak with your family. Privately." Whispers spread through the room. A private meeting with the king was rare. Some aliens looked worried. Others seemed curious. A few appeared angry. "Of course, your Majesty," Frank said, bowing slightly. What else could he say? "Come," the king said. "We will speak in my chambers." As they followed King Vrask out of the reception hall, Lisa whispered to Frank, "What just happened?" "I have no idea," Frank replied. "But stay close to Abby." The king's private chambers were large and surprisingly simple. The walls were dark purple. A few strange plants grew in corners. The furniture was made for the king's tall body. "Please sit," King Vrask said, pointing to some chairs that had been brought in for human guests. Frank, Lisa, and Abby sat down. The king dismissed his guards with a wave. When they were alone, he looked at Abby again. "You said I was a bully," he said. His voice wasn't angry, just thoughtful. Abby nodded. "You were scaring everyone to get what you want. That's what bullies do." "Abby," Frank started, but the king held up his hand again. "No, Ambassador. Let her speak. I wish to understand." Abby crossed her arms. "My teacher says bullies act mean because they're scared or hurt inside. But that doesn't make it okay to hurt others." The king was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something surprising. He removed his crown and placed it on a table. Without it, he looked different, less scary somehow. "Your teacher is wise," he said. "Tell me, Abby Miller, what do you think I'm afraid of?" Abby thought about this. "Maybe you're afraid people won't listen to you if you don't make them scared." King Vrask sat down on a large chair across from them. "There is a story about my people that few remember. The Zordaxians were not always as you see us now." As he spoke, a screen on the wall lit up. It showed images of Zordaxians from long ago. They looked similar to King Vrask, but their skin was lighter purple, and they had kind faces. 500 years ago, my ancestors lived in peace with other species. We were known for our art and wisdom, not war." The king's voice grew sad. "Then a disease spread among us. It changed something in our minds. Each generation became more aggressive, more hungry for power." Lisa leaned forward. "A genetic mutation?" "Yes," the king said. "It affected the royal bloodline most strongly. Each king became crueler than the last. I have spent my life fighting the rage inside me. Until today I thought I had lost that battle." "What happened today?" Frank asked. The king looked at Abby. When this small human struck me, something inside me broke. A wall that had been there my whole life. For the first time in years, I could think clearly. A new person entered the room. It was a human woman with dark hair and glasses. She wore a blue uniform with a star on the shoulder. "Your Majesty, you asked for me?" she said, bowing slightly. "Yes. Ambassador Miller, this is Dr. Wendy Garcia, a human who studies galactic cultures. Doctor, please tell them what you found." In the ancient texts, Dr. Garcia nodded and turned to the humans. "I'm a cultural specialist assigned to study Zordaxian history. Last month I found something interesting in their oldest records. A prophecy of sorts." She held up a tablet and read, "When the untainted soul strikes the corrupted crown without fear, the Empire will remember its heart." "A prophecy about Abby?" Frank asked, looking confused. "Not specifically," Dr. Garcia explained. "But it describes what happened today. The Zordaxians believed that someday, an innocent being would help them break free from their genetic curse by standing up to them without fear." "I have lived with anger clouding my mind for so long," the king said. "Your daughter's simple act of courage reminded me of something I had forgotten, that leaders should protect, not threaten." Abby looked at the king. "So you're not mad at me for hitting you?" King Vrask made that strange laughing sound again. "No, Abby Miller. In fact, I owe you a debt I can never repay. You have given me back myself." "What happens now?" Frank asked. "Now, everything changes," the king said. "Tomorrow I will announce that the Zordaxian Empire will no longer take resources by force. We will find a way to mine what we need without harming the beings on those planets." Lisa looked worried. "Not everyone will be happy about this change." "No," the king agreed. "Many in the council benefit from the way things are. They will resist. Some might even try to use what happened today against humans." "Against Earth?" Frank asked, alarmed. "They will claim humans are dangerous and unpredictable, that you should be removed from the council." The king stood up. "But I will not allow that. From this day forward, the Zordaxian Empire stands with Earth." "All because Abby slapped you?" Dr. Garcia asked, sounding amazed. "All because a child saw clearly what adults could not," the king replied. "That is the power of an untainted soul." As they left the king's chambers later that night, Frank still couldn't believe what had happened. His daughter, who had only wanted to defend him from a bully, had somehow changed the course of galactic history. "Dad?" Abby asked as they walked back to their quarters. "Did I do something wrong?" Frank picked her up and hugged her tight. "No, honey. You did something very brave. And very right." But as they returned to their rooms, Frank noticed other delegates, watching them. Some looked curious, others looked angry, and some looked afraid. Something big had started today, and Frank wasn't sure if the galaxy was ready for it. News spread through the galactic hub station faster than light. By morning, every being on the station knew about the human child who had slapped King Vrask and lived. Some said it was a trick. Others called it a miracle. No one knew what would happen next. Frank woke up early. He hadn't slept well. Today was the council vote, and after last night he had no idea what to expect. He checked on Abby, who was still sleeping peacefully. How could she sleep so well after changing galactic history? His communication device buzzed. It was Lisa. "You need to see this," she said when he answered. "Turn on your screen." Frank turned on the room's large screen. It showed the main council chamber. The place was in chaos. Delegates shouted at each other. Some waved their arms, tentacles, or other limbs in anger. In the center of it all stood King Vrask, calm and still. "What's happening?" Frank asked. "The king just announced he's withdrawing the mining proposal," Lisa said. "He wants to find a peaceful solution that doesn't harm the inhabitants of those planets. And that caused this?" Frank gestured at the screen. "Many delegates are angry. Some say he's gone mad. Others think humans have used some kind of mind control on him." Frank sighed. "Great. So we're the bad guys now?" "Not to everyone," Lisa said. "Some smaller species are actually supporting the king's new position. They're calling it the beginning of a new age." A small voice spoke from behind Frank. Dad? What's going on? Frank turned to see Abby standing there in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. He turned down the volume on the screen. Nothing, honey, just some council business. Abby looked at the screen. Are they fighting because of what I did? Frank sat down and motioned for Abby to join him. Some people don't like change even when it's good change. They're just upset because things are different now. The king seemed nice after we talked to him, Abby said. Will he be okay? Before Frank could answer, his door chimed. He opened it to find Dr. Garcia standing there looking worried. Ambassador Miller, she said. The council has called an emergency session. Your presence is required immediately. What's it about? Frank asked, though he already knew. They're voting on whether to revoke Earth's membership in the council, Dr. Garcia said. Some delegates claim humans are too dangerous and unpredictable to be part of galactic politics. Frank felt his stomach drop. I'll get dressed right away. Dad? Abby asked, looking worried now. It's going to be okay, Frank said, trying to sound confident. Lisa will stay with you while I go to this meeting. Lisa had already arrived at their quarters. Don't worry, Frank. I'll take care of her. As Frank hurried to get ready, Dr. Garcia explained more. King Vrask is defending Earth. He says the human child showed more wisdom than most council members have in centuries. Is that helping? Frank asked. With some delegates, yes, but others are using it against us. They say it proves their point that humans are unpredictable. When Frank entered the council chamber 30 minutes later, the room went quiet. Hundreds of alien eyes turned to look at him. He walked to the human seat, which was near the back of the chamber. As Earth was new to the council, they didn't have a good position yet. The council leader, a tall being with golden skin named Zor, spoke first. Ambassador Miller, do you understand why this emergency session has been called? Frank stood. I understand some council members are concerned about yesterday's events. Concerned? Said a harsh voice. It belonged to Delegate Krex of the Tyrant Collective, one of the larger powers in the galaxy. A human child physically assaulted the most powerful ruler in the galaxy. This goes beyond concern. My daughter was acting as children sometimes do, Frank said calmly. She saw someone threatening her father and reacted. There was no diplomatic strategy involved. Another delegate stood. This one had blue scales and 4 eyes. Perhaps that is what concerns us most. Humans act without thinking of consequences. How can such a species be trusted in council matters? King Vrask, sitting in his large throne-like chair, spoke next. The child acted with courage when the rest of you showed only fear. Is that what bothers you, Delegate Ziv? That a human child has more courage than you? The blue delegate sat down quickly. Delegate Krex wasn't finished. The issue is not courage but control. Humans clearly cannot control their young. What else can they not control? Their weapons? Their ambitions? Whispers spread through the chamber. Frank could see some delegates nodding in agreement. May I remind the council, said a soft voice, that many of our species had difficult beginnings. Everyone turned to look at an old alien with white fur and large eyes. This was Elder Mira of the Arcturan Wise Ones, one of the most respected voices in the council. The Zordaxians were once feared for their violence, Elder Mira continued. The Taurans themselves nearly destroyed their own system before learning restraint. Perhaps instead of punishing humans for their youth, we should help guide them. The elder speaks wisdom, King Vrask said. And I would add this. The human child's action, while unexpected, has led to positive change. I have seen more clearly because of it. Delegate Krex wasn't giving up. The king admits the humans affected his mind. How do we know this isn't some Earth trick? At that moment, the chamber doors opened. Everyone turned to look. Lisa walked in, leading Abby by the hand. The room went silent. Frank was shocked. What were they doing here? Lisa walked straight to Frank. I'm sorry, she whispered. She insisted. She said she needed to fix what she started. Before Frank could respond, Abby stepped forward and looked up at the council leader. Excuse me, she said in a clear voice that somehow carried through the huge room. May I please say something? The council leader looked surprised. This is highly irregular. So was her slapping me, King Vrask said, with that strange laugh again. Yet here we are. Let the child speak. The council leader nodded slowly. Very well, the human child may address the council. Abby took a deep breath and looked around at all the alien faces watching her. Her hands shook a little, but her voice was steady. I'm sorry if I caused trouble, she began. On Earth, my teacher says, when you make a mistake, you should try to fix it. I didn't mean to make everyone mad, I just didn't like seeing my dad being bullied. The chamber was completely silent now. Every being was listening to this small human child. King Vrask and I talked after. He told me about his people and how they used to be different. He was sad about that. Sometimes people just need someone to see them, really see them, not just be scared of them. Some of the delegates looked at each other. Others seemed to be thinking about her words. If you want Earth to leave the council, I understand. But I think that would be sad. My dad says different people can learn from each other. Maybe that's why the galaxy put us all together. When Abby finished speaking, the room stayed quiet for a long moment. Then Elder Mira began to make a soft tapping sound with her hands. It was the Arcturan way of showing deep approval. One by one, other delegates joined in, each in their own way. Frank couldn't believe what he was seeing. His daughter had just addressed the Galactic Council, and they were listening. 6 months had passed since the day Abby Miller slapped King Vrask. The Galactic Hub Station looked different now. The dark purple and black flags of the Zordaxian Empire had been replaced with lighter purple ones with a silver star in the center. It was the old symbol of the Zordaxians, from before the genetic change had made them warlike. Frank stood at the large window in the human section, which was no longer small or far from the center. Earth now had proper offices near the main council chamber. He watched ships come and go in the busy space around the station. Quite a view, said Lisa, walking up beside him. Hard to believe how much has changed. Frank nodded. 6 months ago, we were afraid to speak up in council meetings. Now Earth leads the Committee for Peaceful Development. The door opened, and Dr. Garcia came in. She carried a tablet with the latest news from across the galaxy. The reforms continue, she said. 3 more planets have joined the new Zordaxian Commonwealth. King Vrask has kept his word about sharing power. How are the Zordaxians handling the change? Frank asked. Better than expected, Dr. Garcia said. The genetic treatments are working. The aggressive tendencies are decreasing with each dose, and the King's reforms are popular, especially with younger Zordaxians. Lisa looked at her own tablet. The mining operation on those 3 planets is going well too. The new method leaves the habitats untouched. Both sides are happy. Frank smiled. And all because my daughter couldn't stay quiet when she saw someone being a bully. The door opened again. This time it was a small robot. Ambassador Miller, the special session begins in 30 minutes. The King has requested that Abby attend as well. Thank you, Frank said. We'll be there. After the robot left, Lisa looked at Frank. Do you know what this session is about? The message just said it was special. Frank shook his head. No idea, but after everything that's happened, I've learned to expect the unexpected. They walked to Abby's new schoolroom on the station. After the events 6 months ago, several other species had started bringing their children to the station too. Now there was a small school with young beings from 12 different worlds. Abby sat with a young Arcturan, whose white fur made them look like a small cloud. They were learning each other's languages. Nearby, a young Zordaxian named Krell, the King's nephew, was drawing pictures with 2 other alien children. Dad, Abby said when she saw Frank. Look at my new words. She showed him a tablet where she had written in the flowing script of the Arcturans. Very good, Frank said, impressed. But we need to get ready. There's a special council session and the King wants you there. Abby's eyes went wide. Really? Do I have to speak again? I don't think so, Frank said. But we should dress nicely, just in case. An hour later, they sat in the council chamber. The room was full. Every delegate from all 300 member species was present. The king sat in his chair, which was no longer a throne but a simple seat like the others. Council leader Zor stood. This special session marks 6 months since what we now call the turning point. In that time, we have seen more positive change in galactic politics than in the previous 100 years. The delegates made sounds of agreement, each in their own way. King Vrask wishes to address the council, Zor announced. The king stood. He looked different now. His purple skin was a lighter shade, and his red eyes seemed less fierce. He wore simple clothes, not the heavy armor of before. 6 months ago, the king began, a human child showed me what I had forgotten. That leadership is not about fear but about care. That power should protect, not threaten. He looked at Abby, who sat between Frank and Lisa. The old Zordaxian texts speak of the conscience of the crown, a wise voice that keeps the ruler honest. For centuries, that position remained empty. Today I wish to fill it. Whispers spread through the chamber. The king continued, I ask that Abby Miller, daughter of Earth, serve as the conscience of the crown. In this role she will remind me, and all who lead, to see with clear eyes and an open heart. The room went silent. Everyone looked at Abby, who seemed shocked. The position is symbolic, the king explained. It requires Abby to visit the Zordaxian homeworld 4 times each year, to speak with me about important decisions, and to tell me when I am being, as she put it, a bully. Some delegates laughed softly at this. Others nodded in approval. Frank leaned close to Abby. This is a great honor, he whispered, but you don't have to say yes. Abby thought for a moment, then stood up. She looked very small in the huge chamber, but her voice was clear. I'm just a kid, she said. I don't know much about ruling or politics, but I can tell when something isn't fair. If that helps, then yes, I'll do it. The king made his strange laughing sound. The wisdom of children, he said. They see what matters most. Council leader Zor spoke next. There is one more matter to address. The council has voted to create a new committee. The Committee for New Perspectives will focus on seeing old problems in new ways. Ambassador Miller, we ask that you lead this effort. Frank stood surprised. I would be honored, he said. And Dr. Wright, Zor continued, looking at Lisa, will you head a new research project? Many species wish to understand the human trait that allows you to resist mental influence. It may help us develop treatments for the Zordaxian condition. Lisa nodded. Of course. As the session ended, delegates came to speak with the humans. Some wanted to introduce their own children to Abby. Others wished to discuss new ideas with Frank and Lisa. The fear and suspicion from before had been replaced with curiosity and respect. Later, as they walked back to their quarters, Abby looked up at her father. Dad, are we important now? Frank thought about this. I think we brought something important, Abby. A different way of seeing things. Sometimes that's what people need most. Like how I saw the king was sad inside, not just scary. Exactly like that. That night, Abby stood at the window of their quarters, looking at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, the small blue planet that had only recently joined the galactic community. And somewhere else was the Zordaxian homeworld, where she would soon visit as the conscience of the crown. What are you thinking about? Frank asked, joining her at the window. Ms. Hansen told us that even small people can make big changes, Abby said. I didn't really believe her then. Frank put his arm around his daughter's shoulders. Well, now you have proof. Outside their window, ships from 100 worlds moved in harmony around the station. Among them was a small Earth ship, newly arrived, and beside it flew a Zordaxian vessel, its lights blinking in a pattern that meant peace. The galaxy was changing, and it had all started with one small human child who wasn't afraid to speak the truth.